This home in Manoa is listed at around 1.5 million. One bathroom built in 1948. Before you call it crazy, let's see what actually is driving this number. So, what actually drives a price like this? It isn't the house, it's where you're standing. This is Manoa, one of the oldest, most established valleys on Oahu, and Manoa has always carried a premium. Out here at the carport, you've got covered parking for two, plus driveway space and that bit of space up under the roofline. That's the kind of spot people on Oahu actually use for island life. The kayaks, the paddle boards, the surfboards. It's practical and it's honestly more usable storage than a lot of Manoa homes from this era give you. The home itself was built in 1948 and it sits on a cul-de-sac, which in a valley like this means very little through traffic and a quiet street. Inside, it's been freshly updated, so the bones are mid-century but the finishes are current. Now let me come back to that price question, because the real answer is sitting right under our feet. Across all of Oahu, the typical single-family home runs around $1.1 million right now. Here in Manoa, you're starting in the mid-1 millions and climbing. So before we even step inside, understand that a huge piece of this number is the valley itself. Here's the part most buyers miss. When the city assesses this property for taxes, it splits the value into two pieces: the land and the building. On this home, the land is valued at about $1.1 million. The building? Around 120,000. That means roughly 90% of what you're paying for is the land underneath the home. In Manoa, you are buying the land. The house just happens to come with it. And that is exactly why I make these tours a little differently. I'm not just going to walk you through rooms. I'm going to give you the real market data behind this listing. How Manoa actually prices, what buyers and sellers are doing right now, and a tax surprise on this specific home that you'd want to understand before you ever wrote an offer. The living room and the dining area share one open space, which is classic for the footprint of these older Manoa homes. The whole house is a little over 1,000 square feet, so it's not big, but it lives comfortably, and the updates keep it feeling light and move-in ready. So let me put a real number on Manoa for you. Over the past year, the median single-family sale in this part of the valley has been running between about $1.5 and $1.7 million, while Oahu as a whole sits closer to 1.1. That's a serious premium. You're trying to figure out what a particular Manoa home is really worth for your situation. Not the asking price, but the number that actually makes sense for you. That's the kind of thing I work through one-on-one. Reach out and I'll run it with you. The kitchen is its own separate room rather than opening to the living space. Again, very much the original layout, but it's been redone with new cabinets, new stainless appliances, and updated countertops. You'll also see the classic louvered windows, the jalousies. They're original to homes of this age, part of the character of a 1948 Manoa property and the kind of detail a buyer can modernize over time. This home is priced at close to $1,500 a square foot. That sounds enormous next to the island median, which is under $700. But two things are going on. Smaller homes almost always show a higher price per square foot because so much of the cost is the land and the lot, not the floor area. And in Manoa especially, square footage is almost the wrong thing to be measuring. You're buying the valley and the land, and the house is just what happens to sit on it. So don't let a big price per square foot number scare you off here, and don't let a low one fool you either. In a neighborhood like this, it's the land doing the work. Now let's talk about Manoa itself, because there's more here than one name. Manoa has 4 distinct neighborhoods, each with its own elevation, its own feel, and its own pricing. Picture the valley rising from the sunny flats near the university up into the rainforest at the back. At the mouth of the valley is Lower Manoa, the sunniest, most level part, the most walkable, and generally the most accessible way in. Through the center runs the original heart of Manoa, the classic, established homes lining the valley's 2 main roads. Over on the east side, behind Manoa Marketplace, is Manoa Woodlawn, which is where this home sits, known for its quiet cul-de-sacs and well-kept mid-century homes on the flatter floor of the valley. And then, deepest and highest of all, Upper Manoa, climbing toward Manoa Falls, Where the lots grow larger, the air turns cooler and wetter, the homes feel more private, and the prices rise with the elevation. And those MLS sections do not price the same. Over the last 12 months, Manoa Woodlawn, right here, has carried the highest median of the three, around 1.7 million. Manoa Upper has been closer to 1.6, and Manoa Lower has been running near 1.5. Same valley, same name on the map, but a spread of roughly $200,000 between sections. And the pace is different too. Homes in Woodlawn and Upper have been selling in a couple of weeks, while the lower section has been taking longer to move. Different little micro markets, all wearing the same name. So the next time you hear the median in Manoa is such and such, the real question is, which Manoa? Here's what really shapes those numbers though. Manoa barely trades. In the last year, only about 14 single-family homes sold in all of Manoa Woodlawn. And in the lower and upper sections, it was even fewer, single digits each. When a neighborhood sells that few homes, one unusual sale can swing the whole median by a couple $100,000. That's exactly why the year-over-year numbers look so wild from one section to the next. It's not chaos in the market, it's just a very thin market where every single sale carries a lot of weight. Open these bedroom windows and you can see why people fall for this valley. It's just green out there. You can hear the birds, and it feels less like a city bedroom and more like a cabin tucked into the forest. That feeling, that lush, cooler, rainier valley character, is a real part of what the Manoa premium is paying for. Let me actually explain that month or two of supply idea, because it's one of the most useful numbers in real estate. And most buyers have never had it explained. Months of supply is simply how long it would take to sell every home currently listed, at the current pace if nothing new came on the market. Under 3 months is a seller's market. 3 to 6 is balanced. Above 6 starts tipping toward buyers. Oahu as a whole is sitting around 3.5 months right now, fairly balanced. Manoa Woodlawn is under 2. So this section is meaningfully tighter than the island overall, and that's a big part of why sellers here hold firm on price. And what does sell moves quickly. To give you something concrete, a comparable Woodlawn home recently sold for about 1.76 million, a 4-bedroom on a 10,000-foot lot. And it went in roughly 2 weeks. Homes here have been going at essentially the full asking price. So if you find a Manoa home that really fits you, it helps to already be ready, because with 1 or 2 months of supply, the well-priced homes simply do not sit around. You'll also notice this is very much a 1948 home in places. Some of the original louvered windows are still here, the kind of thing a new owner would likely update over time. But the light is lovely, the layout is flexible, and at just over 1,000 square feet, it's an easy home to live in while you make it your own. Now, the tax surprise I promised you, and this one is worth your full attention because it applies all over Oahu. If you pull the tax record on this home, you'll see the annual property tax jumped from about $3,300 a couple of years ago to nearly $7,000. It more than doubled in a single year. And that has almost nothing to do with the renovation. Here's what happened. Honolulu has a special property tax class called Residential A. It kicks in when two things are both true. The home is assessed at $1 million or more, and it is not owner-occupied, meaning the owner doesn't live there and hasn't filed for what's called the home exemption. This home is owned by a company sitting vacant, freshly updated to sell, so no one lives in it, and there's no exemption on file. That pushes it into Residential A, which is roughly double the standard owner-occupant rate. That's the entire reason for the jump. And here's why that matters to you, the buyer. The tax number you see on a listing reflects the current owner's situation, not necessarily yours. If you buy this home and actually move in, you can file for the home exemption, and you'd very likely shift off Residential A and back onto the lower standard owner-occupant rate. Your monthly tax could drop meaningfully. But if you buy it as a rental or a second home and don't live in it, you stay on that higher rate. Same house, completely different tax bill, depending entirely on how you use it. And one more thing people moving from the mainland always ask about: in Hawaii, your assessment does not reset to the purchase price the moment you buy, the way it does somewhere like California. The county reassesses on its own schedule, so don't assume the tax automatically jumps to match what you paid, but absolutely budget for that exemption question, because as you just saw, it's the difference between $3,000 and $7,000 a year. Back inside where we started, before we head out to the yard, just keep that one idea in your pocket. About 90% of this price is the land you're standing on. Out back, there's a small covered porch, room for a little table, and an extra storage closet outside. Again, more practical storage than you'd expect. And here's the live picture. As I'm filming this, right now there are only 4 single-family homes for sale in all of Manoa Woodlawn. They run from this one at about 1.5 million up to around 1.9 million. And this is the lowest priced of the 4, partly because it sits on the smallest lot of the group, just under 5,000 square feet, where the others are closer to 10 or even 15,000. In a valley where you're buying the land, lot size is a big part of the story. And the backyard is pure Manoa. It really does feel like a little jungle back here: birds, butterflies, everything thick and green. This is the side of the valley people pay for. It's also worth saying plainly, with only a handful of homes selling here each year and barely a month or 2 of supply. When the right Manoa home does come up, the buyers who are ready tend to be the ones who get it. And if you're on the other side of this, if you already own in Manoa and you've ever wondered what your place is worth, this thin market actually works in your favor. When only a dozen or so homes in your section trade in an entire year, a well-prepared listing really stands out, and there's very little competing inventory to pull buyers away. Pricing it correctly still matters, but the scarcity here is on the seller's side. That's a conversation I'm always happy to have, whether you're thinking about it this year or just curious where you stand. That's a beautiful plumeria tree right there, the kind of thing that takes decades to grow in. Little details like that are part of why Manoa holds its value the way it does. These are mature, settled properties in a valley people rarely leave once they're in. Manoa gets a lot of rain, and that's exactly why it's this green. In fact, Manoa is one of the wettest, greenest valleys on all of Oahu. It sees a little mist or a passing shower almost every day, which is exactly why you get those famous Manoa rainbows, and a backyard that feels closer to a rainforest than a city lot. And for a buyer, that's the real trade. You accept a bit more rain than the dry, leeward side of the island, and in return, you get cooler air, mature landscaping you simply cannot replant anywhere else, and that quiet, set-apart feeling the moment you turn off the main road into the valley. In a place like Manoa, you're not just buying a house. You're buying a microclimate and a setting that took decades to grow into what you see right here. Now, Manoa trades so thinly that a lot of what changes hands here never gets a big public marketing push. It moves quietly. So if you want someone watching this valley for you, section by section, including the quieter off-market opportunities, that's what I do every day. Send me a message and tell me which part of Manoa you're after, and I'll keep an eye out for you. So back to the question we opened with: what's really driving this price? It's the land, it's the valley, and it's how rarely anything here comes up for sale. The 1948 house on top is almost beside the point. That's the real story behind a number like this, and it's the kind of thing I break down on every home I tour. I'm Oksana with Island Living Oahu. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.